Mallory, who is she? She's the leader of the Women's March movement, okay? And she's taking a lot of heat, basically, for attending a speech by Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan back in February, where he claimed that, quote, white folks are going down, unquote, and that time's up for, quote, satanic Jews, unquote. She says the Women's March movement has plenty of Jewish people involved and plenty of white people, and that she has no tolerance for anti-Semitism. So, is this guilt by association we're talking about here, or should be taken out of the leadership position? What do you think?
It's not just that she attended. She posted a photo on Instagram with calling Farrakhan GOAT, great, which means greatest of all time. So she's definitely has her, there's the photo right there.
From 2 years ago.
From 2 years ago, yes. So there's clearly an affinity for someone calling someone the greatest of all time. It kind of piggybacks on the conversation we were having yesterday about the inclusivity or exclusivity of the Women's March. And they have a hard time. I thought Hannah Alam from BuzzFeed said it best. She said the cohesiveness of the Women's March has been tried before. It comes under fire from women of color, anti-abortion activists, the NRA, anti-Muslim forces, and many other critics. And now you're adding possible anti-Semitism into this. There's a reason why there's a lot of people, where we only had 2 members of our table yesterday who wanted to call themselves feminists.
Well, you know, just let me read one thing from her point of view. She credits the Nation of Islam for supporting her after her son's father was murdered 17 years ago, which she calls the most difficult period of my life. So she has a personal relationship with.
Can I push back really quick on this, though? Wait, I want to get this, though, because remember when we had a conversation about how CPAC was Nazi-friendly? If Louis Farrakhan said Hitler was a very great man. This is not black and white. This is black and white, excuse me. It's very simple. You think Hitler's a great man? Don't associate with that person. CPAC, you want to associate with this person? Don't. There should be no normalizing of this one way or the other.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think, I think she needs to call out Farrakhan and not necessarily the Nation of Islam. It's the same thing with Christians. You're not necessarily calling out the religion, but you're calling out an individual that maybe has been too extreme. Yes, he said that Hitler was a very great man. In this speech in February, in which she attended, he also said, quote, powerful Jews are my enemy. He's also said that Jewish people were behind the 9/11 attacks. I think you absolutely need to
notorious anti-Semite.
You absolutely need to disassociate yourself.
Part of learning to be a leader effectively is that you have to use your voice and you have to be very clear. Now, you work with people all the time with whom you disagree. Goodness knows, I met with the Koch brothers when we were working on criminal justice, or Rupert Murdoch when we were working on immigration reform. But you have to, if you want to lead an inclusive movement, you have to be clear about hate. And we have to be against it every single
time. So does that mean that you do not meet with these people?
Right. No, I know, as I said, if you're trying to get things done, meeting with somebody is one thing, but associating yourself with this hateful rhetoric is very, different.
So should she say, I do not agree with this hateful rhetoric from Farrakhan?
She should speak out firmly against it, and I think she should have earlier. So, but you know what? She's learning to be a leader. She's young. She's stepping into this, and it doesn't take away from the movement.
But in the nicest way possible, the Koch brothers and Rupert Murdoch are nowhere near anyone who said Hitler was a great man. White folks are going down. The Jews have been so bad at politics, they lost half their population in the Holocaust. There's a very big difference between meeting with someone who ideologically has a different opinion and perspective and someone who thinks that Hitler was a very great man.
Let me say this, because I've interviewed Tamika Mallory, and I know her, and I've spoken to her at length, and she is young. She considers herself on the front end of being an activist. But I wonder why she hasn't come out very strongly against this. And I also am wondering where she is at, because she, I think March 7th, posted this. She said, where my people are is where I must also be. It is impossible for me to agree with every statement or share every viewpoint of the many people who I have worked with or will work with in the future. So she's talking about being at the table with people she may not agree with, much like you are saying, Valerie. So I wonder if we will hear from her to say, you know, listen, I am distancing myself from his policies.
But it begs the question, can anybody...
I don't think she went to the table to have a conversation.
But I think it's dangerous to say that Rupert Murdoch and the Koch brothers are in any way the same as Louis Farrakhan. And that's, again, the women's movement and the women's march. Not you, but that's what you were saying, meeting at the table with people. There's a difference between, we meet at this table every day, we all have different perspectives on the world. There's a difference between meeting with someone who I think is a hate leader. I wouldn't meet with David Duke. Like, there are people I will not meet with. Period. And I think he is in the same vein to me as David Duke. If you are so hateful that you think Hitler was a great man, I don't think you deserve a platform.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you. But I think you were about to make is Are we setting a standard to the point where
Yeah.
almost nobody can be
I mean,
immune?
everybody has baggage. Unless you're in utero, you have baggage.
But do we need... The other question that I struggle with is, do you need the leader of a movement? We've talked about that with
That's the
Black Lives
question.
Matter.
But
We've
it's
talked about that with the
hypocritical to me
women's
to
movement.
sit here and have such
Do you need
frustration
that?
over people that were invited to CPAC, like Le Pen, who again I totally disagreed with and disavowed, and saying we have baggage since we're in utero. No, this is not the same thing. It's not the same thing as meeting with.
We don't like her
someone who's
either.
completely-
We don't
I
like
know, but-
Farrakhan, and we don't like her.
I know, but I'm
We're
just
not
saying.
disagreeing with you. I
Saying
don't
that
think.
What are we
there's
disagreeing
baggage.
with?
But you were saying since in utero there.
Everyone
we all
has
have
baggage.
I agree, but my baggage isn't that I think Hitler's a great man. My baggage is that I put some crap
Yes,
on
we
Instagram
agree with
when I was
that.
22.
There are limits to the baggage.
Okay, so my question for
Yes.
you is, what should she do going
She
forward?
has to distance herself. She has
We'll
to come
back
out
and
against
we'll
hate.
decide
Absolutely.
her fate
Yes.
when we come back.
So first daughter and White House senior advisor,
Get through it without laughing. Come
Ivanka
on.
Trump, was
Switch the
asked,
mood real quick.
was asked about the multiple sexual misconduct accusation against her dad during a recent interview, and it didn't go over as well as I think the interviewer wanted it to. Take a look.
I think it's a pretty inappropriate question to ask a daughter if she believes the accusers of her father when he's affirmatively stated that there's no truth to it. I don't think that's a question you would ask many other daughters. I believe my father. I know my father. So I think I have that right as a daughter to believe my father.
And yes, it is her dad, but she also works in an official capacity for the White House. So she's spoken out about other sexual misconduct allegations. So was this, in fact, an inappropriate question?
I don't think so at all. I think it was completely fair game because she is not just his daughter. She is the White House senior advisor. She has an office in the West Wing. And her platform is supposed to be about helping women. That's the platform that she sort of, told us all she was going to be dealing with. And so I think if your father has been accused by not one, not two, but 16 women, then that's something that you should talk about.
She said she believes her father. But that was after she shames the reporter for asking an inappropriate question. So she basically had it both ways. Oh, that's a terrible question, but here's my answer.
Yeah.
So,
Right. And it's also like what Sonny was saying. If she had not wanted that position and has not been so vocal about empowering women and also talking about other accusers, you can't just toggle on the daughter switch when you're in an uncomfortable position. That is part of that job, is dealing with, and especially now in today's climate, the Me Too climate, there's all, it's like, if Me Too is thought of as almost like a video game, Donald Trump is the final boss in this. He's Donkey Kong at the top of this thing, and she's the princess standing next to him, and they're like, hey, can we talk about the flaming barrels? He's trying to, like, we're not going to talk about that right now.
You know what, though?
But you're right
if you
there,
separate her
know?
role at the White House from the girl, it is a little upsetting that to have him as a father, she probably believes it, because she believes every other accuser.
Well, I don't think we can
accused.
I don't think we can pontificate on how she feels because
Well,
we don't
I'm just
know.
saying from a emotional and a parental point of view. I'm saying it as a mother, really. Your father cheats like that on your mother. He did. Your mother wrote a whole book about it. Now we have all these accusers in this Me Too environment. It's kind of heartbreaking that she has to be in that position. Now I don't even. Okay, go ahead. I'm just giving you another way to look at it.
But that's why we have
I'm not going to
anti-nepotism
project
laws.
onto Ivanka Trump how she really feels. I will tell you that being the spouse or son or daughter of a politician is very tricky because you either take on a surrogate role or you take on the son or daughter role. And when you decide to be a surrogate, which means you're doing interviews with the press, you do press scrums, you go on the campaign trail with them, you work in an official capacity as an extension of the political office that your parent represents. So Chelsea Clinton did that. She took a lot of heat because in 2008, she said she couldn't actually she refused an interview with a Scholastic reporter, which is a child, and obviously a children's publication. And there's a lot of criticism with Chelsea Clinton that she was sort of also playing both hats. So this has happened before.
But was she in an official capacity?
Yes, she was a
really?
surrogate on the road
She was a
for her
surrogate,
mother.
and she was asked the question, I think, at Butler University, and she
I'm-
refused to answer it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
no, it's irrelevant. All I'm saying is that Chelsea, Ivanka Trump's problem right now is that she has an official capacity in the White House. As you said, she is working literally as an advisor, has an office in the West Wing. She has continually said that I don't see myself as a political person. We discussed that on the show. And going forward, when she does interviews like this, there's a way for her to spin this. Okay, Peter, I'm a daughter. As a daughter, I trust and love my father. As an advisor, let me tell you why this is politically harmful for my family and for the White House. And the thing that always exacerbates me with this administration is that it is so evident that their children aren't political media trained. They're clearly media trained to protect a brand, as you said.
It's brand protection.
But there's no political spin
that has to do with this.
But there is a way to do it.
Hold on. Let's come back to this. Is that interesting?
Yeah.